Hello and welcome to the Continue Watching live chat. I am Seventh Ton, and joining me is Matt. Matt, say hello.
Hey everyone,
Matt, I would like to register a complaint.
I'm here for it.
So remember last week we talked about AMC Plus and how AMC Plus was running a promotion where if you signed up for a year of the service, you could do it for $2 a month. So it was $24 for a year's worth of AMC Plus. Does this ring a bell?
Yes, this rings a bell.
Okay, so I took the bait and I signed up for the year of AMC Plus. And I did it on a whim without thinking too much about it because I knew there was a couple things on there I wanted to check out. And soon after I signed up, I heard from a bunch of people that AMC Plus has a really terrible app. And I thought to myself, well, how bad could it be? So I downloaded the iOS app on my phone and messed around with that, and it seems fine. Like, not great, definitely not great, but fine, you know? And I kind of left it at that. So yesterday evening, I decided that I wanted to watch something on AMC Plus on like my main TV in my family room. So I download the app for Apple TV. And it's fine. I get logged in. That goes smoothly. And everything's fine. And then I start up the show and I go to turn on the closed captions, otherwise known as subtitles. I go to turn on the subtitles, and my complaint is that on Apple TV, AMC Plus has no subtitles.
What?
They're not there. I swear to God, they're not there. I first I tried to turn them on via Siri. So press the button, turn on subtitles. It works with like almost every other app, and I do that, and the AMC app says no. You know, it comes back with like an error basically. I'm like, okay, well, I'll turn it on, manually in the menu somewhere. It's not like on the now playing screen. It's not in the settings. It's nowhere. It doesn't exist. There's no subtitles on that app. And I can't believe it. It's 2021 and this app doesn't have subtitles. I know they have subtitles because you can access them on other apps. So I don't know. J-Baby and Spectro are saying to use the Apple TV channel, but I think it's different. Like, I think if you subscribe, maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm subscribed through AMC Plus directly, I can't access it from any other like third-party apps. So I think I'm stuck, and I don't know what to do because I use subtitles 100% of the time. The only time I do not use subtitles is when I'm watching Jeopardy.
Well, yeah,
Because all that crap is on the
live show.
because
Yeah.
Jeopardy's on. They put all this stuff on the screen anyway. So I'm stuck. So I paid $25 for a year of AMC Plus. That's basically unusable on my main TV. And if I want to watch it, I'm gonna have to like watch it on my iPad or whatever, which isn't ideal. Like, it's not like, I mean, it's almost a deal breaker, but I guess it's not quite a deal breaker, but it's still stupid. The only thing I didn't try, and I was talking through all this with you, I'm realizing the only thing I didn't try is I didn't try airplaying it from my phone. Do you guys think, in the chat, let me know if you think that if I airplay it from my phone to the Apple TV, if the subtitles would be accessible. I kind of think they will be, actually. So maybe I'll just try that.
But how frustrating that you'd have to go through all of that to get subtitles.
I guess it is really dumb. Like, I feel like that's not only is it it's like a really basic feature, but it's not like it's not friendly to all users. Like, that's how long have closed captions and subtitles been around? Like, for decades and decades and decades, and now they don't have them. It's just it's embarrassing. Like, I don't understand why they're not working on that day and night until they can push it out. It's ridiculous.
seems like a crucial accessibility issue.
Yeah.
But then I'm just like thinking back when the Eternals was announced, or not announced, but when it was being released. Of course, one of the actresses in the show is deaf, and she was talking about the importance of closed captions. And one of the movie theater chains, and I think it was AMC, which of course the AMC movie theater chain is different than the AMC TV channel. But I think that they indicated that they were just going to make it standard to have subtitles on the bottom of the screen, no matter what the film was, because so many people at home choose to have the subtitles on.
Yeah.
So you would think that if a movie theater is going to opt in to have it, when they, historically haven't, a medium that has historically had them should have them.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, well, I will file that complaint.
Thank you.
And I am sure that they will work right on it, just like the Chinese restaurant fixed your crab sticks for you.
Well, I know it's in good hands.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
well,
so go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's in good hands because when I complain, stuff happens.
Right, exactly. That's the only reason I'm friends with you.
Yep, nope. That is my number one value add to any situation, and this has been confirmed for me this last week because on Thanksgiving morning when everybody was filled with gratitude and Thanksgiving, I sat down and I was like, hey, Seventon told me that Disney Plus is now going to be added onto Hulu next month, and I have to pay for it anyways because I'm already paying for live. I'm gonna message customer support and see how are we going to resolve the fact that Disney Plus until 2023, and I'm not really thrilled to be paying for it twice. And so I actually ended up with both Hulu and Disney Plus's customer service reps on live chat simultaneously. And it was funny how they did not know the same things. You would think that the same company would talk because Hulu is 66% owned by Disney.
Right.
But long story short, as I was, frustrated that I was double paying for Disney Plus, which, let's be honest, Disney Plus is totally worth paying double for. But, I want to save a buck. It turns out that Disney Plus revealed something to me that I have long wanted, because anybody who has heard me talk about Hulu at all knows that I hate Hulu and I hate the platform. And if there was any other better option, I would want that better option. So as I'm, talking to the Hulu rep, they're like, yeah, sorry, we're not able to resolve the problem. You need to go talk to Disney. But what can we do? And I was basically like, hey, if you're going to pass along feedback for me, my feedback is that Hulu sucks and that Disney Plus needs to have Star in the USA, which is I moderate the Disney Plus subreddit. There's 80,000, 70,000 people over there. And over and over again in the US, people are begging for Star. They want to get rid of Hulu. They want Star Canada has. So I told them that I want Star like Canada. And so I told the same thing to the Disney Plus person, and the Disney Plus person said, hey, there's going to be a beta test of this in 2022. I'll put you at the top of the list for the beta. And I was like, what? Disney Plus Star in the US? I can maybe get rid of Hulu? I mean, I guess I'd have to be okay giving up live TV. But this was mind-blowing to me. I was so excited. I am on Disney Plus news websites all the time, and I had no idea that there was a beta. That that they had thought enough about this that there's actually a beta, and it's this random customer service rep knew what Disney Plus Star was. And so I'm super excited, but then the other piece of me is thinking, is this just all a lie and she's just saying whatever she needs to say to get me off of her live chat? So I don't know. You guys in the chat, what do you guys think is the situation here? Am I at the top of a beta list that I have been hoping and praying for now since Star was announced? So I guess a year. Or is it just them trying to get rid of me? Oh gosh, J Baby and Spectra both think they were just trying to get rid of me.
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate and say that it seems to me if they were going to do something like that a customer service rep, such as the one that you were talking to, probably wouldn't be one of the first people to know about it. I mean, does that make sense? And then it seems weird that they would be so free with that information if it's something that's coming a long time from now in a beta sort of test.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited, but also there is a skeptical side of my brain. And there's a
Yeah.
piece of me that remembers, like I'm a Christian. I work at churches actually, and my wife's like best friend growing up, our church, it wasn't air conditioned, and from the time that she got like an allowance, well, maybe before then, when she was in high school, she got a little bit snarky that the church would get really hot during the summer. So she started, when she would put her like offering into the plate as it was being passed through the pews, she would write air conditioning fund on it. And there was no air conditioning fund, but the church's policy was that if you donated towards something, that money would be used towards that something. So like this 14-year-old girl effectively created the air conditioning fund at the church.
Yeah.
And, like after 10 years, I think it had all of like maybe $50 in it. So I wonder if it's like the same kind of thing, like where you request something, if you're insistent enough, they're like, sure, we're going to put you on a list for it, but they have no intention of doing it. But like your name just sits on the list forevermore. So maybe I'm on the air conditioning fund of Disney Plus Star.
So I think my suspicion is that if Disney does something like that, they would most likely just make Hulu a tab in a Disney Plus app that you can add on. Kind of like on Hulu now, they have an ESPN tab, ESPN Plus tab. So if you subscribe to ESPN Plus, you can also watch it in the Hulu app. So my guess is if they're going to add something, that's what they would do first. Like I highly doubt that. I mean, this is all stuff we've talked about before, but it seems weird to me that in the U.S. they would adopt the Star name. It seems to me like they would almost definitely keep the Hulu name. And it would seem weird to me that they would like roll them together where you have to have one or the other. I mean, where you have to have both. You couldn't have Hulu and Disney Plus separately. So my guess is that if they do something like this, it would be like an add-on. Disney Plus would have an add-on for Hulu that you could watch in the Disney Plus app. Just like I assume they're going to be doing soon in the Hulu app for Disney Plus. They already do it for ESPN Plus, but since Hulu with Live TV is now also going to include ESPN Plus and Disney Plus, I'm assuming that Hulu with Live TV will just have a Disney Plus tab somewhere in there, right?
Well, no, that was one of the things that I was upset about because, I don't hate Hulu content. I hate Hulu's UI. And so I was basically like, there's no way in hell I'm giving up the Disney Plus app and the operating systems and be forced to see Disney Plus content on Hulu. And they said, no, you'd still have access to the Disney Plus app. I was like, what? Okay. Like, this might not be as bad as I initially am thinking. But part of me wonders if they're worried about Hulu losing a lot of value because right now Hulu has, like the Disney Plus, or it has the Disney catalog of content that they can draw from, and then it has Comcast catalog. And then on the live TV, it's basically their version of like cable, right? Like you can watch whatever's live and I guess you can DVR it. But there's a report out this week that Hulu is looking at pulling their content from Comcast is looking at pulling their content from Hulu and putting it on Peacock, which would make sense. It's their own app. And as soon as they do that, we lose the Comcast library, and then all Hulu really is a catalog of Disney library content, the stuff that isn't on Disney Plus, and then it's a live TV service with DVR. And so I wonder if they're looking at doing like a Disney Plus Star with Hulu Live TV as the option because Hulu will basically lose a lot of their content. I don't know. Disney's kind of in an interesting situation moving forward because they lost the part of the Fox library that they didn't buy, and they're about to lose the like NBC Comcast library. So I don't know. What do you think?
My thoughts are that even if Comcast pulls all of its content from Hulu, then it still doesn't. I don't think that moves the needle a whole lot. I think that between ABC and National Geographic and FX and FXM and FXX and all the Fox stuff that they bought and their original programming. Like, I feel like that's good enough. And plus stuff that they could license from other, like if they wanted to license stuff from Sony, for example, or from AMC, for example. Although I don't know what AMC is doing with their content, if they're licensing it out at this point or not. At any rate, I feel like that's probably enough content. I don't think that's an existential crisis for Hulu if they lost that content. I think that they would be just fine. I don't know. I mean, I don't have data, I don't have stats for that to show what people on Hulu were watching, but I would be really shocked if people were primarily watching Comcast content. I think the people that subscribe to Hulu are using it mainly for stuff that's already Disney owned or stuff that's Hulu original. That's just my gut feeling. My gut feeling is that the Comcast stuff is nice to kind of pad out the content, to pad out the catalog. But my gut feeling is that most of the people that are watching Hulu are mostly watching either Disney-owned stuff or Hulu originals. But like I said, that's just my gut feeling.
Think of like what all Comcast owns, like in the NBC like universe, right? Because you have Bravo is NBC, you have Oxygen, Sci-Fi, Telemundo. Yeah, you're right. There really isn't all that much now that I look at it. That would be NBC, like Peacock owned. The big thing is all the sports, which people are going to watch live anyways. And it seems like that's like the NBC sports kind of networks are continually like losing content themselves. So Sci-Fi C and E and Bravo, which
yeah, I don't see those as big losses. I mean, it's easy for me to say that because I don't watch any of that content, but at the risk of repeating myself, I just don't think that that's when people are getting Hulu. I don't think that that's like the big draw. I don't think the big draw is that content.
Well, we're not nervous about Comcast pulling their content to Peacock, which is still a pretty it's a failure of a streaming service so far, which is kind of fascinating to watch some of these flops. I mean, how much content do you watch on Peacock? Do you have Peacock?
I do. Well, here's what I'll say about Peacock. Peacock is not. I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. I think that they have some really good originals. I think that Rutherford Falls is a really, really good show. And I think AP Bio is a really, really good show. And not enough people watched either one of those, which is curious because they're both like half-hour comedies with like recognizable actors and stuff. I just don't think they do a very good job of promoting that stuff. But and then Peacock also has a lot of the like NBC comedies that everyone kind of knows and loves, and I think that there is a lot of stuff on there to watch, but most of it is catalog stuff, and so it just kind of goes back to some stuff that I've talked about in the past, where my gut feeling goes a little bit against the grain, I think, of the conventional wisdom, which is that people subscribe to streaming services based kind of on the width of their catalog. And I think that most people subscribe to streaming services based on a niche of what they want to watch, so just because a streaming service has a really deep catalog, like Peacock has a really deep catalog, there's tons of stuff on there to watch. Older sitcoms and stuff like that were big, big shows like 30 Rock and stuff like that that are on there. Peacock still doesn't have that many subscribers. So Peacock, I think you could argue that Peacock has a super deep catalog of shows that got big ratings and are still kind of beloved, classic sitcoms and whatnot, but they don't get a lot of subscribers based on that. I think what Peacock is lacking is exclusive content, new content. And if they had more of that, if they had more good exclusive content, then I think that would lead to more subscribers. I think that Peacock thought they could get away with having a really deep catalog of, beloved half-hour comedies, and it turns out that that's not good enough. So I think that people can learn from that. So when they talk about, Netflix lost Friends, what are they going to do? Or they lost The Office, what are they going to do? And it really, I feel like it kind of doesn't matter. I mean, in aggregate, that will matter. Like, if you keep losing show after show after show after show, then that's one thing. But in general, I think that these services that have these back catalogs of older shows is kind of a nice to have, but not a need to have. And I think Peacock just kind of helps to prove that to me. I don't know. I can't know because I don't have the numbers, and you can't always count on getting truthful information from the owners of the streaming companies, because they're going to tell you whatever sounds good and whatever the investors want to hear. But in my gut tells me that the back catalogs are nice to have, but not necessary. And when you look at a service like Peacock, which is perhaps the best example of a service that has very few original shows and a lot of shows that are older and were very, very popular, it's a streaming service that's really struggling. So I don't know how you put that together. Like, I don't know how you make that math work out where you say streaming services need to have a deep catalog to be successful, and then you look at Peacock, which has a deep catalog but not much else, and it's considered a failure.
I think content is king, and there's so many streaming services that have fairly deep content that you can usually find anything that you want, or anything that will do, maybe is the right way of saying. So like back in the day when it was just cable, you'd flip through, 20, 50, eventually 300 different channels. You'd find something that was good enough and you'd stop and you'd watch it. And so I think that there's people where they're like, do I want to spend however much money on another streaming service? Or can I just find something that's going to, keep me happy here? So I think that, there's people who love Friends and How I Met Your Mother and The Office and all of those. As long as they have access to one or two of them, they're fine. At least for, a cycle or two. But when I think back to the different launches that we've seen now, so CBS All Access became Paramount Plus, and Paramount Plus had this giant investors presentation that was super exciting for me, and it kept highlighting originals and really cool new things that they would do. But they didn't ever really deliver on the originals, at least not very many of them. And there was nothing that was kind of a marquee original. I remember one of the big things that excited me at the time was Real World, Homecoming. So to see the original New York cast of the Real World reality show, but there wasn't anything. And Peacock was kind of the same thing. Their big first show was Punky Brewster or the Saved by the Bell reboot, which those are fine. Punky Brewster got canceled again. But Disney, they came out of the gate with The Mandalorian, right? They went to one of their biggest franchises, and then they got top talent. And so I just wonder how much of Disney Plus's launch was the fact that, they threw The Mandalorian at us, and then there was the promise of the MCU shows. And I just wonder if these other streamers, are going to eventually figure out that they need blockbuster streaming content, which is frankly what Amazon's doing, right, with the Lord of the Rings stuff and some of their other franchises.
Yeah, I was just
and
about
Netflix
to
has even gone that direction. So it seems like Peacock and Paramount need to pony up the money.
I was going to interrupt you and say that that's one thing I do like about Amazon Prime's strategies. They take big swings. They have the Lord of the Rings stuff. They have the Wheel of Time stuff. They did the Jack Reacher stuff. They've done so many, taking big swings. They don't. The Miss Maisel was a pretty expensive undertaking for them. Speaking of which, I wonder when the new season is going to come out. I haven't heard anything. But anyway, Amazon takes big swings. I think they get that. They get that they need, to get the buzz and to make their service feel like it's worth the money. They need the big shows. But going back to something you said about Paramount Plus, I think that was Star Trek, right? Paramount Plus really put a lot on the back, put the kind of success of the streaming service on the back of Star Trek Discovery, right? And I think it kind of worked. Like, that's all I heard about for a long time, where when people were talking about Paramount Plus was about Star Trek, and Star Trek still does very well for them, but I don't think they've been able to develop something to go along with that. And I think they really missed the boat on the Gen X nostalgia factor of all the MTV properties, because Paramount has all the Viacom content. At least now they do. I think before it was a little bit split, where they had some but not all. But at any rate, there's so many MTV shows that they could tap back into and just instantly arouse the interest of all the Gen Xers that grew up on MTV and would be really susceptible to that nostalgic advertising campaign for the new season of The Real World, or the new season of Road Rules, or the new season of take your pick of it.
My Ride.
Yeah, right. Or Cribs, Pimp My Ride, Super Sweet 16, The Hills. What was the Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson show, whatever that one was called? Meet the Barkers. Like, you can go on and on with these, and Singled Out and whatever, all that stuff. Daria, for crying out loud. At any rate, they could really tap into that, and I don't understand why they don't. When you look around, and there's so much, Netflix is doing that 90s show. I mean, there's no property that these people won't bring back or reboot or, relaunch. This is why can't Paramount Plus get with Viacom and be like, we need to take these shows and give them another chance. That being said, it's not always good, right? It doesn't always work out, like these reboots and relaunches. They just did Gossip. Someone just did Gossip Girl. I can't remember. Is that on? I don't know. Someone tell me. They just brought back Gossip Girl on one of the streamers. Oh, HBO Max. Thank you. So Gossip Girl is back on HBO Max. So it's not always good. It doesn't always work out. But man, if I was Paramount Plus and Viacom, I would 100% go all in on that, because they don't have anything else going on except for the Star Trek stuff. But at any rate, I still am not convinced that it's all that necessary for these streamers to have the deep catalogs. What they need is a serviceable catalog, some kind of catalog, and then they need to have quality originals. And that's the way I think you create buzz, and you get critics interested, and you get people talking online, and you get people talking about it on social media, and that's the way you kind of build buzz for a streaming service, in my mind. But that's just me. Let's move on. And did you want to talk about the Cyber Monday deals? Today is Cyber Monday, and there are there's still a lot of deals out there to be had. Hulu brought back their for the ad-supported, you can get 12 months for 99 cents per month. It seems like they've been doing that for 3 or 4 years now. Paramount Plus, you can get a month free with a code. Amazon Prime video channels, they have a couple, maybe half a dozen premium channels that you can get for 99 cents a month, I think, for the first 2 months. I'm going to do that to get Stars, I think. I can't remember, whatever channel has Perpetual Grace Limited, this show called Perpetual Grace Limited, which is a fantastic show done by the same team that did Patriot. Such a great show that nobody saw, and I believe it's on Stars. It's either on Stars or Epix. I can't remember which one, but I'll re-sign up for that for the 99 cents for a month or two, and just so I can rewatch that. Discovery Plus, you can get for 99 cents per month for 3 months. Probably a pretty good deal if you like that content. and Showtime is doing $3.99 a month for 4 months after a 30-day trial. And they've been doing this for a while. I got an email with a similar offer like a month ago or whatever. So I guess Showtime is really putting the foot on the pedal to try to get subscribers. I think they brought back Dexter, right? So they're probably using that as a way to get people to come back to the service. Did you take advantage of any of these deals, Matt?
I didn't. So the other the other company I complained to on Thanksgiving Day was Verizon, and they switched me over from one plan to another. No cost change, but Verizon's throwing all these perks at you. So the old perk I had was Apple Music for free, and now I have Hulu, ESPN, and like an ad-supported version of Hulu, so a bundle for free. Which was kind of funny that I had just gotten done complaining to Disney Hulu, and now all of a sudden I have it for free again.
You have a three-way. You have it 3 ways now.
I have it 3 ways now. Yeah, I am paying effectively for Disney Plus 3 times over. I want Mickey Mouse to come visit me and thank me for being the most loyal customer ever. I don't think it's going to happen, but a boy can dream. So I didn't take advantage of any of these. And Discovery Plus, I signed up for like a year free via Verizon as well, so I get that one as well.
Wow,
but
Verizon's
to be honest,
really hooking you up.
Verizon's totally hooking me up lately, and I guess I love them. And to be honest, I've had Discovery Plus now for like 2 or 3 months, and I think I've watched it once. There's just so much good content out there, and as much as I love Chip and Joanna Gaines, I don't know that I'm going to pay whatever their normal fee is. But like some of these things are interesting to me, particularly for like short-term gigs, right? Like I'd love to have Epix for a couple of months or Showtime for a couple of months. I don't see myself subscribing long term, but it would be great to get them for a little while, binge the content that I'm interested in, and then let them go and wait until they have something else that interests me again.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Though none of those services are things that I hold on to like month to month. Like there's something that I'll subscribe to for like the month, and just watch whatever I'm going to watch during the month, and that's it. I think a lot of people do that. It's smart to do it.
It is, which is why I think, we see Disney Plus so committed to most shows are still being released 1 week at a time, and they're staggering those releases to really try to prevent churn. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, when some of these other streamers pick up on that. And we saw Netflix started to do a few things week to week. So we'll just see what they're going to do to try to prevent all of this churn.
Yeah. I like that, but I won't repeat myself about it. Speaking of Comcast, like we were earlier, it looks like Comcast, Matt, is going to increase their cable costs next year.
That way. It looks that way, which is just kind of fascinating to me. But I suppose at this point, if you're still a cable customer, you're probably going to keep paying no matter what. It's just $3, but I just keep thinking, like, for something that is slowly dying, you would think that they would be trying to keep customers. To see all of these people who are reporting that their bills are going up by like $3, $5, kind of at the start of the year. I don't know. It's just interesting. You would think that they'd be running sales.
Looks like they're raising their internet prices too. So they're going to get you both ways.
And then if you're suckered in like me, and I guess I have to have both in order to keep cable or to keep my internet cheaper. So maybe I'll have to revisit come January and find out if I can finally let go of the cable that I don't use.
Yeah, the chart I'm looking at here doesn't give info for like bundled prices. It's just all the a la carte prices. It looks like cable TV is going up about $3 per package. The TV broadcast fee is going up by about $3. The regional sports fee is going up by about $3. And for each additional TV, I guess, they charge for each additional
per
TV
box or whatever.
yeah, it's going up $1. So that's substantial. Like that adds up. So you're going to pay about an extra $3 on your package. Then you're going to pay another $3 on your broadcast TV fee, and then another $3 on your regional sports fee. That's $9 right there. And if you have a couple, have a couple TVs in the house, that's an extra dollar per. And then for your internet, they're going to jack that up by about $3 per month. So and also your box fee is going up by $1. So Xfinity is going to get into you, if you have cable and internet, by $10 to $12 extra a month. But like I said, I don't have data here for the bundled pricing, which is always cheaper. So I don't know.
I don't know, and maybe it's just inflation, but it seems like a losing business model. But what do I know?
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Disney Disney recently disclosed how much money they are going to spend on content in 2022. Matt, how much money is Disney going to spend on content in 2022?
$8 billion more than they did in 2021, bringing their 2022 fiscal year total to $33 billion.
Wow.
Which is just, and like, that's a big number, right? That's what Genius Jedi just said. It's a big number.
How can I get 1% of that?
Yeah, I guess you have to sell them a show.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, just kind of as we're talking about content being king, there is this like push, and in some ways, if you want to work in Hollywood, now's the time, because everybody needs to be producing a show to feed these streaming services that are just in constant demand for content. And so that is that $33 billion is split between Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus. And God knows ESPN Plus needs a lot more content.
Yeah. It also includes movie. It also includes movies too. So any of the movies they're bringing to streaming. So I mean, the budgets on movies can be big. They could drop $200 million on one movie.
I think Marvel TV series are pretty expensive to make.
Yeah, good point.
So that's just kind of fascinating. And one of the things that's interesting to me is I remember when they first made the announcement that they were going to do $25 billion. There was a conversation about the fact that was kind of changing the way that Disney was providing value to their investors, because for the longest time, right, like Disney releases a movie, they make, I don't know, $500-600 million on it, or they have theme park guests, and you make profit off of that, and then you just take a share of it and you give it as dividends to your customers. Well, during the pandemic, for the first time, I don't know, in like 50, 60, maybe in their whole company's history, they didn't give out a dividend as expected. And their reason for not giving out that dividend was that they needed the money for content, and to shore up, stuff like the theme parks that weren't bringing in revenue. And so there was talk about the fact that, like, Netflix, I don't think, does dividends, because all their money just goes right back into the content. So if Disney, the company, is going to no longer be a dividend stock, and I think they paid dividends since the last time, but if they're moving away from that dividend stock, I wonder how that's going to make Wall Street think about them, and then what that's going to do to the share value. So I don't know. So it's just kind of fascinating to watch, like, this, how old is Disney now? It's like 1920 something is when Mickey Mouse showed up on the scene. It's a 100-year company. So to watch them just kind of continue to evolve, in front of the scenes and behind the scenes in big ways as they change the way they do business and the way that they are relating to investors is fascinating to me.
Yeah. According to Variety.com, for through 2022 fiscal year, Disney anticipates that it's going to do 60 unscripted series, 30 comedy series, 25 drama series, 15 docuseries, 10 animated series, and 5 made-for-TV movies. So I guess that's where they're spending their money. I'm kind of surprised there's so few movies. I expected there to be more than 5.
surprised that there's that few movies as well. I'm also surprised that there's so many unscripted series.
Yeah, I don't know what that
Because when you
means.
think of Disney,
Well, I
you
think
think
that might include the National Geographic stuff, which would all be probably considered unscripted.
if it's just 60 unscripted series, because we've seen unscripted series do tend to get lots of eyeballs and they are cheaper to produce overall. But when you think of Disney, you think of like, right, their movies, or you think of like their animated series, like Bring Back the Gummy Bears. So yeah, no, to see them as in this unscripted series category is interesting. Of course, they now do the Kardashians, right? So I don't know. The Kardashians are like trillionaires at this point, right? So how much of that 33 billion is going to Kim, Chloe, and the other one?
Why did they
I
do
don't know.
that show?
So they took it from right. It was on Bravo or E or something
Yeah, yeah.
forever, and so then the show ended, and then like almost right away they announced that they had a Hulu deal, and
Oh,
so
really?
yeah, Kardashians are coming back, and I think it opens with Kim's divorce.
I
So I
have
don't
no
know.
idea. Yeah, I have no idea. Obviously. Okay, let's move on down the list here. We have this was from last week. We just didn't get to it. Disney and Warner Media carve up Fox film slate streaming rights through the end of 2022, and basically what we have here is HBO Max and Disney are going to split Fox's films for streaming for one more year. So this will be the last year that HBO Max has any of the new Fox stuff to stream, and then after starting in 2023, it'll all be on Disney Plus or Hulu or wherever Disney wants to put it.
Because some of the stuff is going to be on both. So like
Yeah,
Ron's
right.
Gone Wrong, it's
Yeah,
going to be on both HBO Max and Disney Plus.
yeah, that's interesting, and that's really all there is to say about it. I don't know if there's too much more to say that it's just kind of the last year they're going to be doing that. What I would really like to know is why they decided to extend this deal out for one more year, and what the money contract, like what kind of money is changing hands from HBO to Disney to make this happen.
Well, and why? Why was HBO willing to foot whatever bill Disney wants, right? Disney's sitting here spending $33 billion on content. So why, how much must HBO be spending to get some of their content?
Yeah, I don't get it either. HBO Max, I guess I should say, has so much content, especially movies. It seems like they could
It
get by
shows.
without it. I mean, they're owned by Warner. It's not like Warner's not putting out movies. I mean, HBO during the pandemic has been releasing all these movies in the cinema and on HBO Max on the same day, including Dune. So I don't know. There must be. I mean, I'm sure they crunched the numbers and it works out for HBO or in Warner to license this stuff from Disney, but I do wonder like what kind of payment they're sending over to Disney. One last thing we should mention, and this is the last one left over from last week, is that Roku and YouTube TV have been disagreeing for the past few months at least about, well, just about everything. So YouTube TV pulled its app from Roku. If you still have the YouTube TV app on your Roku, it's still fine. You don't lose it. But if you're new, if you want to go and download it new, it's not available. And this has to do with a disagreement that Roku and YouTube TV had about YouTube TV wanting some concessions from Roku about searching within the Roku OS. I'm recalling this just off the top of my head, but it had to do with when you search. YouTube TV wanted some kind of preferential treatment in the search box, and Roku wasn't having it, and they had some other disagreements about it, which led to Roku basically kicking off YouTube TV, or maybe it was vice versa. Maybe YouTube TV decided to pull it. I think it was Roku, actually. Roku took YouTube TV off of the platform for new downloads. And so in retaliation, I guess, or as a workaround, Google added YouTube TV to the normal YouTube app. So you could download the YouTube app on Roku. So they just added a tab on the YouTube app for YouTube TV. And so new subscribers could just download the YouTube app and then access YouTube TV from that. Now, to the best of my knowledge, and what has been last reported in the media, is that YouTube and Roku only have an agreement to have the YouTube app on Roku through December. And so then after December, I don't know what happens, because it really seems like YouTube and Google and Roku cannot come to an agreement about these things. And so I wonder if when January hits, if they're just going to pull the YouTube app off of Roku, which would be, I have to guess it would be bad for both. Roku's still the number one streaming platform in the United States, and YouTube is a major streaming app. And it seems like they would both be, both be hurt by this. And so someone is going to blink first, and I'm not sure who that's going to be. But at any rate, the thing I wanted to mention was that YouTube TV, that Roku did an update, and it was causing a bunch of problems with the YouTube TV app. Again, this is for people that had already downloaded it before it was removed from the platform. But apparently Roku confirmed that it was something to do with their update to the OS, and they are fixing it or have fixed it already. They say they've fixed it. So
There here is going to be Amazon, because Roku's right now sitting at about 36% market share, which is down from 39% 2 years ago. And in that same amount of time, Amazon has their Fire TV has increased from like 30 to 36%. So right now, Roku and Fire TV are actually tied in market share. With Chromecast, Apple TV kind of rounding up the other top four.
Yeah, it's crazy because Amazon has had disputes with other streaming services too, so it's not like their nose is exactly clean. It seems like Apple and Google are the best, the best citizens in this best citizens in this realm, because it doesn't seem like Apple never has disagreements with app providers or streaming services, and I can't remember the last time Google had one either. Amazon and Roku have had some in recent history. And putting that aside, though, I think it's a real shame, because I do think the Roku OS and the Roku devices are not only inexpensive, but I think they're really easy to use, and they have great remote controls. And I just find the Amazon Fire stuff to be not a great experience. They're certainly inexpensive, but I don't think they're a very good experience in general.
Surprised that Apple TV only has 12% of the market share, which is actually down from their peak in 2016 when they had 19%.
It's because they're so expensive. I mean, they're like $200. It's $200 versus $50 for a Chromecast with Google TV. So if you put those side by side, Chromecast with Google TV, I think is probably the second best streaming box after the Apple TV. And, one's $200 and one's $50. So, if Apple TV reduced its price to something more competitive, I think they would instantly gain a lot of market share, because it's an awesome box. Like, it's easily the best hardware. It's easily the best hardware and the best app performance, has the best app performance, but that price tag keeps lots of people away, and I can't blame them, because it is very, very high. I mean, it's hard to justify for the normal consumer, for the the casual streamer, it's hard to justify $200 Apple TV versus, a $50 Chromecast with Google TV or a $35 Roku streaming stick. It's hard to convince somebody to spend $200 when 35 or 50 will get the job done.
You buy whatever it is that you buy, and you probably go into the streaming space on the cheap initially, and then when it works just fine, why upgrade to Apple? So
yeah, I mean that's what I did. I started out with my first streaming box was a Roku 3, and I used that for a very long time. And I think I experimented with the original Chromecast and didn't care for it, and I may have just returned it. And I did get a Fire Stick when those came out, and I did not like that as much as the Roku, so I went back to Roku. And I flirted with the last version of the Apple TV, the one with the remote that had like the swipe area at the top. Really didn't like that remote. I did not like the swipe pad, and returned it. And then I always swore that if Apple would just get a good remote on the Apple TV, a good native first party remote, that I would day one go back to Apple TV. And then that's exactly what I did. And I couldn't be happier because I do love my Apple TV. It is fantastic, even though it was expensive. J Baby says the remote was always good, but we all know that's a lie. That swipe pad was awful.
I still have the swipe pad, and J Baby, you and I never disagree, but we might disagree on this one. It's okay, but I definitely think that it's time for me to upgrade to the new remote. Except my Apple TV box is now old enough that I'm afraid I'm going to upgrade to the new remote, and then just end up needing to buy a new Apple TV, and I'll have duplicate remotes. So I'm holding off a little bit more. Luckily, my sister works for Apple, so I have a dealer, which is one of the only reasons why I have so many Apple products.
There you go.
I do get a pretty nice discount.
There you go.
So that's my advice for the night. Make a family member work for Apple.
Wow, great advice. Great advice. Who saw that coming? Okay, so we've gone through the news, and now it's time for us to talk about what we have been watching. I'll start, and I'll try to go through these quickly. Recently, I've been watching more movies than TV, and this is something I think is probably going to be the case at least through the end of the year. I do this sometimes where I'll go through a spurt where I'm watching just a lot of TV shows, and then my attention will really swing back to movies, and that's where I'm at now. But what I've been watching, we'll go through this stuff. So I finished up the morning show on Apple TV Plus. I watched the season finale. The season finale was okay. It wasn't great. The whole season, as you would expect, had been building up to the big finale, and I'm not sure it really delivered. It wasn't a disappointment, but it certainly didn't wow me. Going into when it starts back up for season 3, I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to get back into the show. I'll probably wait and see what they're going to do in season 3. If they don't have plans to do something interesting with the story, then I'll probably not watch it anymore, because toward the end of the season, I wasn't really looking forward to watching it. You know, when you get to that point, you've been watching a show for a long time, but you can kind of feel when you get to the point where a new episode comes out and you're like, oh, a new episode of Morning Show came out. And then you're like, well, I don't really feel like it. And then the next day you don't feel like it. And then, and you just kind of every day you're kind of like, well, you're not really looking forward to watching it. You don't feel any urgency to turn it on. So that's I'm at that point with the morning show now where it's like, I've watched it and I've been enjoying it, but I'm really kind of falling. The show's kind of falling out of favor slowly, and I'm starting to realize that. But not bad. I would give the season overall, season 2, I would give it overall maybe something like a C+ to B-. And I'm not sure if a C+ to B- is enough to keep me around for another season. I've also been continuing to watch the OA. I am almost done with season 1. I think season 1 has 8 episodes, and I've watched the first 6 episodes. And I'm really trying to take it easy with the show and not binge it because I'm really enjoying it and I kind of want to stretch it out and savor it. So we've been watching no more than one a day, and we've been watching it for about a week and a half. Yeah, that sounds about right. For about a week and a half, and so we've gotten through 6 episodes in about 10 days. And so you can see that we're kind of spacing those out and taking our time with them. Continuing with my rewatch of Patriot. Patriot is on, oh, by the way, OA is on Netflix. Continuing with my rewatch of Patriot on Amazon Prime. You all should know by now how I feel about that show. It's one of my favorites of all time. Criminally underrated show. If you haven't seen it, please try it. It's very, very, very good. On Netflix, I watched the season finale of the Bake Off, the Great British Bake Off. Matt, are you caught up on that?
I haven't been watching lately.
Okay, so I won't say much about it other than it was a pretty satisfying finale, and that continues to be one of my favorite unscripted reality shows. I did watch, the last show I want to talk about is a show that's on AMC Plus, and it was one of the shows that I had signed up for the dumb AMC Plus service to begin with. It's a show called Kevin Can Go F Himself, which is a title that really gets your attention. So again, the name is called Kevin Can Go F Himself, and the concept is really original and very unique. The show goes between two kind of styles, right? Like part of it, so the conceit of the show is that it's like a typical American network sitcom. Think what was the Kevin James King of Queens? King of Queens is like the best example of what this show is kind of like. Think of those sitcoms like King of Queens, where you have the male character is just like a big man child who just is screwing around in the house all day, acting like an idiot, playing video games, giving his wife a hard time. He's kind of a slob. Makes his wife clean up after him, doesn't contribute anything around the house. It's just kind of a goofy, good for nothing, not good for nothing, but like this kind of a goofy, immature person who doesn't really, has some poor wife that just kind of puts up with him and cleans up after him and, it mothers him through life. And in these, in those sitcoms, they make it seem cute, like, oh, isn't it so funny that, he can't cook or he can't clean or he doesn't even know how to work the vacuum cleaner or the washing machine, and isn't it funny that he doesn't, when he feeds the kids, he, shoves, a hot dog in front of them with a jar of mayonnaise or something, these out like stereotypes of like typical stupid American male goofy man child. So when the show has when Kevin is on screen, it's in the format of a sitcom like that. Big laugh tracks, a bunch of that kind of behavior. And then when there are scenes where it's just the wife, it completely turns into something way different stylistically, right? It doesn't look like a sitcom anymore. It looks something more like Breaking Bad or Mad Men or one of those, a show like that. So the tone of the show, the colors, the lighting, the way it's shot, everything changes stylistically, and it becomes a show about a poor woman who is having to put up with this ridiculous man who just acts like a complete moron all the time and makes her life hell. So the scenes switch. So when it's a scene with Kevin, it's, it's like this typical, like, NBC sitcom, like I said, think like King of Queens, like totally just like that, stupid guy doing stupid stuff, making, life a living hell for everybody, but somehow it's all funny and everyone loves him. And then when the scenes switch and it's just her and not him, it turns into a drama, like a really dour drama about a woman who is like in a living hell, living with a terrible man who acts like a moron, but everyone likes him, and she's, completely put upon, and she's the only one, keeping anything together. So it's a really unique concept, and I'd heard from a lot of people that it was really well done. And that was the only reason I subscribed to Amazon or the AMC Plus. So I watched the first episode of it, and while I thought it was good, there were too many scenes. I only watched the first episode, but in my opinion, there's too many scenes with Kevin in that like terrible kind of laugh track sitcom style, and too few of the scenes with just her and showing like her point of view. So I always just kind of felt I was watching a goofy, stupid sitcom the whole time, and then, which was not what I was there for. And then when it switched perspectives to the wife's perspective, then it was really interesting. Then I thought the show really kind of hit on a different level, and you really were like feeling sorry for this poor woman that has to put up with this, idiotic husband who relies on her for anything and everything, and it kind of just showed how she was like getting through it all, having to deal with him, and that stuff I thought was really compelling, but there was not enough of that and too much of the goofy sitcom stuff, and that was a bit of a turnoff. So I'm not sure that I'm going to keep watching it, which is a shame, because maybe I will look at episode 2 to see if they kind of switch the balance of the narratives around, and maybe maybe moving forward they'll have less of the Kevin character's perspective and more of the wife's perspective, because I hate to give up on it and then have them like correct for that right away, and then I don't want to write it off I want to give them a chance to correct it if or at least to see if they do it. So I will try to look at episode 2 to see if they can make some adjustments. But as of right now, I say I can't really recommend. It's definitely unique. Like if you have the chance to look at it, definitely do, because it's really, really unlike anything that's been on TV before, anything that's been done on TV before. The concept is super unique, but I just feel like it should have been about 80% of her narrative and 20% of his narrative, and the balance is probably more like 2/3 him and 1/3 her, and I think they really need to adjust the balance of the narrative viewpoints to make it worth watching for me. But really, again, like I can't emphasize enough how unique it is. It's totally unlike anything I've ever seen on TV before. Matt, have you heard of this show at all?
I have heard of it, and the concept, caught my attention. I wonder how long can you keep it going. And then to hear like that you thought the balance was a little off, it's definitely a show I'm interested in. I'll probably give it a shot too. But I just don't know that I could watch a whole series on it. So it'll be interesting to see how long that show manages to have legs.
Yeah. So the last things I want to talk about are some movies that I watched over the weekend. I really was able to pack in a lot of movies this weekend. Started off watching Punch Drunk Love, which is a older movie directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Adam Sandler. And this was the movie that Paul Thomas Anderson first became known as a talented director for Boogie Nights. And then after Boogie Nights came out, he followed that up with a movie called Magnolia that really kind of cemented his place as a very up and coming and talented director. And so his movie after Magnolia was announced that was going to be starring Adam Sandler. Everyone thought that Paul Thomas Anderson had lost his mind. But it turns out that not only can Adam Sandler act, he's a really good dramatic actor, but the movie was really, really good. And most critics agreed that it was really good. And I had seen it when it first came out, like on home video or whatever back in the day. And I hadn't seen it for a very, very long time. And I noticed that it was on HBO Max. So I decided to revisit Punch Drunk Love on HBO Max. And man, that movie really holds up. Like, it is still a really good movie. I don't know if you've never seen it. I definitely would urge you to check it out on HBO Max. It's not an Adam Sandler comedy. It's not even a comedy at all, except there are some kind of absurd moments in the movie that will kind of make you laugh. But it's definitely not a comedy in the vein of The Water Boy or Wedding Singer or any of those Adam Sandler movies. It's really good. And if you watch Punch Drunk Love and you enjoy it and you enjoy Adam Sandler's kind of dramatic, kind of sad, kind of melancholy, dramatic performance in Punch Drunk Love, I would urge you to check out a movie called Uncut Gems, which came out about a year ago or so and stars Adam Sandler in a dramatic role. It's kind of a crime drama. And man, he's really good in that too. Like, it really pains me that Adam Sandler has such good acting abilities in that genre, like in the kind of drama. He's really good at playing like a melancholy character or like a just kind of a more serious character in dramas, and he hardly ever does it. But the two standout performances from him in non-comedies are Punch Drunk Love and Uncut Gems. Punch Drunk Love I watched. I loved it. Such a good movie. It's only about 90 minutes. It's not very long, and you can watch it on HBO Max. The other movie I watched was The Irishman. Have you seen that, Matt?
One.
It is directed by Martin Scorsese, stars the kind of same group that he put together for Goodfellas and Casino. So I'm talking about Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. Also, Al Pacino is in it, and a bunch of other actors that you would recognize.
The one that's like ridiculously long, right?
It's
like,
three.
I'm surprised you're not.
Yeah, it's 3.5 hours.
Watching it?
It's 3.5 hours, and it's been out for a while. The Irishman is probably about 2 years old at this point. And I wanted, as soon as it came out, Martin Scorsese is one of my favorite directors. I've seen almost everything he's ever done. And like I said, he's just one of my favorites, but I'd put off watching it for so long because it was 3.5 hours long, and I put it off and put it off and put it off, and then just kind of forgot about it. And I forgot the movie even existed until I was reminded of it a couple weeks ago. And I was like, man, I still have not watched this movie. So I started it on Saturday and I watched like an hour and a half of it, and then I had to stop. And then later on that day, I watched the other 2 hours of it. And man, what a great movie. Like, it's very long, but it's also one of those movies that you don't quite want to end. It's just like the old saying where, the old saying that no good movie is ever long enough and no bad movie is ever short enough. And that really speaks to The Irishman because, man, it's long, but I enjoyed every second of it. Like, I wouldn't, you could probably go into that movie and you could probably edit out 30 or 40 minutes of that movie and the movie would still make sense. But I would never dare. Like, everything in that movie is a great joy to watch. All the performances are super. Martin Scorsese knows how to put together a movie. It's very, very, very good. The only criticism I have of that movie is that it's definitely like variations on the same themes that he explored in Goodfellas and Casino to, like modern mafia movies. And The Irishman is another, for lack of a better term, it's another mafia movie, modern mafia movie. So my only criticism is that Scorsese has kind of visited this topic a couple times before, but man, it's a really good movie. It's on Netflix. You should definitely check it out if you liked Goodfellas, or if you liked Casino, or if you've liked any of Scorsese's other movies. Definitely recommend it. It was nominated for lots of Academy Awards too. Real quickly, I watched another movie. This one I watched on the Criterion channel. I subscribed to that for a month just so I could watch some stuff that's on there. This movie was, again, it's called Where the Sidewalk Ends. It is available on the Criterion channel. It was released in 1950, so it's an older movie. It's in black and white. It was directed by a guy named Otto Preminger, who is probably best known for directing a movie called Anatomy of a Murder, and he also directed a great movie called Laura. Laura is kind of having a second life right now. I think people are rediscovering that movie. It's a really good crime mystery movie. Where the Sidewalk Ends is definitely a film noir movie. It involves a lot of illegal gambling, low-level crooks, cops, good cops, corrupt cops, murder, and a love story, kind of a melancholy love story. All the actors in it do a really good job. There's all the direction of the movie is pretty, I would say it's pretty by the book, especially for the time period. But there is some nice, different camera shots, camera angles in there that are interesting. And there's a really good shot that takes place in an automobile elevator that is really good, and it was probably really technical for the time, just to get the whole thing to work. I don't know what else I could say about it. It's a crime. It's basically a crime noir film. It is interesting because it's kind of notable because in 1950 there's still this kind of agreement between law enforcement and Hollywood, where Hollywood wouldn't make movies that depicted police officers that Hollywood wouldn't make movies that painted police officers in an unfavorable way. And this movie, Where the Sidewalk Ends, skirts dangerously close to this, and that's why it was kind of notable for that, where the main character is a police officer who does some really shady stuff, but also does some really kind things as well. So he's a pretty, the character has a lot of depth. So, like I said, it's a police officer that does some bad stuff, but then also really goes out of his way to try to make up for the bad stuff that he did. So the character has a lot of depth, and it was totally uncommon for police to be depicted this way in movies at the time. My only criticism of it is that there's some fairly important plot points that happen off camera, and you're told about them through the dialogue. You don't get to see it happen, and that kind of weakened the movie, I think, a little bit for me. But it's still very good. I would still recommend it. I would give it a B. And if you like older movies, older black and white movies, older film noir films, you definitely like it. So you check it out. That's Where the Sidewalk Ends, and it is on the Criterion channel. Lastly, I watched a movie called Bombshell that came out a couple of years ago that has a killer cast with Charlize Theron, Margot Robbie, Nicole Kidman, John Lithgow, Kate McKinnon is in it, and some other actors you would probably recognize. And it is about the downfall of Roger Ailes on the Fox News channel. I liked it. It does feel very hard to watch. Like it might be too soon to watch something like this, because it still does feel like pretty raw, and it doesn't feel like all that much has really changed. Although I don't know. You guys, you have to watch it and judge for yourself. But that is Bombshell that came out a couple of years ago, and you can watch it on Hulu. And Matt, that's what I've been watching.
Well, you watched a lot. I did not watch a lot this weekend. I was, I don't know, off with family and doing other things, and didn't have as much time to sit down on my couch and watch TV as I would have liked. Yes, sorry, Spectre, that was my alarm. I don't know what it was for. It was to remind me about something important that I've now forgotten. But what I have not forgotten is that the shows that I did watch this week was Hawkeye episode 1 and 2.
Okay,
was
so
at
yeah,
that 2-episode premiere.
so we really need to talk about this because I have not seen Hawkeye. Don't have immediate plans to watch Hawkeye, but I'm going to let you try to talk me into it.
I don't know that I can, to be honest, but
Great.
we'll still try. So I thought Hawkeye was fun. I like that it introduced Haley's character. I thought her character was fun and compelling. They gave her a good origin story tied into the larger MCU universe. And that's my big to do now in this phase is I think post Blip, post Endgame, you got to tell me where these characters were during the first 1,000 phases of the MCU. And so as we're introduced to Haley's character, it is well grounded in the MCU world and in the events of the MCU that came prior. So that was a major plus for me, was her character didn't feel like she came out of nowhere. It felt like she had a history and that she was impacted by the events of the past. And so without kind of spoiling too much, Kate Bishop is basically Haley's character, is inspired by witnessing Hawkeye in kind of the Battle of New York, which impacts her personally. And she goes on from that to take up archery and judo and basically just become a 22-year-old badass. And that's kind of her world. But she's still a little aimless. And the movie finds her, not rising up to her potential. And maybe a little bit overconfident. So anyways, she, through a series of events, catches Hawkeye's attention. And so then the two kind of have their meetup moment. And I think it's clear from all the trailers and the marketing material that these two team up. And kind of the funny thing about this is she's teaming up with Hawkeye pretty much against Hawkeye's desire. Clint Barton is kind of stuck with her, which is kind of this interesting dynamic where he has no choice but to deal with her, and she's a little like Tom Holland Spider-Man-esque, where she may be a little overeager, a little overconfident, and it's kind of a fun dynamic. But I think what's really special about any Marvel movie now is you're trying to figure out how it fits into the overall universe. And so a lot of what's been set up is that we're revisiting Hawkeye and his time kind of post-blip and before people came back, where he basically became a vigilante in New York. And so we're revisiting some of the impact that had as well. So we're getting to see, getting to understand a little bit about Hawkeye as Ronin. So we're getting the payoff for that. And just kind of meeting some interesting new characters along the way. So the first 2 episodes I thought did a good job establishing Kate Bishop, kind of setting up, where Clint Barton is now and what he's having to deal with and who these characters are. Clint, yeah, thank you. Flying Scotsman is pointing out that Hawkeye takes place 2 years after the events of Endgame. So there's been some time post there. One of the things that's kind of interesting is seeing Clint deal with the end of Endgame, and I'm just going to assume that Endgame was out long enough ago that I can spoil things. from Endgame. So if not, I don't know, chat angrily so that I see. And then also, what have you been doing for like the last 3 years? Um, so, Hawkeye is like dealing with, losing Natasha. And it's also kind of funny. He's developed like a hearing loss, which then, when Kate asked him about like, how he lost his hearing, you see like a montage of just basically like Hawkeye being blown up like 1,000 times over. So kind of nice that, they're addressing
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
hearing loss and what could actually happen. But the part of the storyline that just kind of falls flat for me is Hawkeye, when you kind of are reintroduced to him, he's in New York with his kids and he's trying to do like the family thing. And for whatever reason, it's not fully explained. His wife is back home, on the farm or whatever. And it's just kind of sad to watch him constantly being pulled away from his kids. And like my wife like looked over at me and is like, gosh, why can't they just let him like live happily ever after with his family? And so there's like this piece of me that just is like, yeah, like, this poor guy has gone through the ringer. He's, has super talents, but he's not like a natural superhero. And it just kind of feels like it's time for him to enjoy his life. And so to see kind of this Christmas holiday get interrupted as he now has to deal with Kate Bishop and her problems is, I don't know, there's something that's kind of sad about it. I don't know. Does anybody else feel a little sad about the fact that Hawkeye is like kind of forced back into action? And yeah, so they're pointing out in the comment, in the chat, that he promised to be home by Christmas. So that also just kind of makes me sad that I think he, it's a Marvel flick. So my guess at this point in time is he's either going to make it, but like he'll be there like, I don't know, midnight on Christmas Day, having basically missed it, or the dude's totally going to die. Those are my two theories. But I'm going to stick in. It's only a 6-episode season, so, relatively fast. And it sounds like the next couple of episodes aren't going to be as long as the first two.
How long were they, Matt?
How long were they? Long enough. So episode 1 was 47 minutes. And so, of course, that includes like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of that post credits where they have to tell us in the subtitles, every different nation who worked on redubbing it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then the second one was 49 minutes. So pretty long. But yeah, it's like, I think one of the other fun things about this is we're pretty sure that we're going to run into, oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name, Black Widow's sister, who's presumably the new Black Widow. So we're expecting to see her, I think.
Who is going to be the new? Who do you suspect to be the new Black Widow?
Did you not see the Black Widow film? Spoilers.
No, I did. But who?
Okay, what's her name? Her younger sister.
Oh, the one in
Florence,
from the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from the movie. Florence Pugh's character.
Yeah.
So I think we're expecting to see her any episode now. But there's also a lot of signs that we might be running into. And I don't know if it's just like fans hoping that we'll run into them kind of the way that I hope the OA will be resurrected. But it looks like we might run into Charlie Cox from Daredevil, because it looks like we're going to get a villain from the Netflix series Daredevil. So as we're dealing more with the criminal underworld, and they seem to be the major threat in Hawkeye, it just seems like we're going to start to get to see maybe little glimpses of kind of the Netflix MCU shows starting to come back in. So I'm on high alert for that. I think that would be fun, and it definitely would be good fan service. Kingpin. Thank you, Flying Scotsman. So,
this is the part of the MCU that I'm most interested in, which is like the non-superhero part. So maybe I actually should check out Hawkeye, because I do find those characters, the like the Black Widow and Hawkeye and Daredevil, ones that don't necessarily, they don't really have superpowers. Those are the ones that are more interesting to me. So maybe I should check out.
Might be that show for you. It has it's good Marvel. It has some good humor, some good action. And you're not like there's some twist, I guess I would say, but there's nothing that's gonna like I don't know, and there's nothing that redefines the rules of the universe either. So it was a good flick. My wife and I enjoyed it. Frustrated that we have to wait a week in between episodes, but we're so far happy, and then also just kind of hoping that this world can kind of continues to expand, and then we're hoping that Clint Barton gets a good send off, and he's able to like go hang out with his family and be a dad without being interrupted by the need to save the world.
Finally.
So that's where I'm at. Is I want him to get to retire. But I'm super excited by Kate and her introduction, and I think she's going to be a compelling character, and I can see her playing well in the films in years to come. So that was Hawkeye. Anything, guys, that I'm missing there? Throw it into the chat. So yes, Marvel, Hawkeye, fun. Then the other thing that I watched was I tried to watch the Thanksgiving Day Parade. Like, don't you have to watch that on Thanksgiving? The Macy's one. I caught like 2 seconds of the Philadelphia Parade. I was confused on why who was showing it to me. But do you watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade every year?
I don't think that I've ever watched it.
Hey, never mind. For like a long time,
I guess that makes me a monster.
It makes you a monster. It makes you a monster. This year, I'll be honest, it didn't really capture my attention. And I thought, like, oh, maybe it'll capture my son's attention. And, there's a giant Paw Patrol balloon, and surely that'll make him excited. But that made him excited for about 2 seconds flat. And then as I was watching the show, and I was just thinking about how cold New York City must be, and seeing all these, like, half-naked women, like, in the marching bands and stuff, I was like, you know what? I'm too cold just watching them out there in that. So I did not watch Thanksgiving Parade, really, this year. So that's a show that I didn't really watch. And then another show that I didn't really watch was Red Notice, which, I'm continuing on with that. But I saw a news article as I think I'm now on week 3 of trying to finish Red Notice, and, enjoying it enough to keep turning it on, but not enough to like sit still long enough to watch it. It is apparently on track to be Netflix's all-time #1 movie in its initial release.
Isn't that crazy?
So it is crazy, and you just kind of wonder, like, how much of that is the cast?
It's got to
Ryan
be,
Reynolds?
yeah. I mean, for sure, that's the draw.
Every time I turn it off and back on, it counts as like a new viewing. So maybe there's just a bunch of us who are like, surely this will capture my attention. Surely this will capture my attention. And Netflix is sitting there being like, gosh, this one household has watched this film like 10 times, not realizing that we've never made it through the end. I'm sure that's what's going on. So it's a good enough flick. But that's kind of what I've been watching. So really just Hawkeye this last week.
All right. Anything else you want to mention before we move on into upcoming things? I haven't watched Red Notice either. I have not even watched 1 minute of it. The reviews didn't seem like it would be to my taste or whatever. Although I do like all the actors involved. I like Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot, but I don't know, man. It's all the critics that I trust were like, this is trashy. I mean, so that can be good or bad depending on your level of taste. Like if you like kind of big movies with movie stars being movie stars and just kind of living it up and blowing stuff up and whatever, then you'll be into it. If not, then pass. And so I'll probably pass. Anyway, so let's end by talking about some stuff that's coming up. Looks like the Yellowstone, we talked about Yellowstone last week, but the Yellowstone has a prequel that's called 1883. Looks like that's coming up. With Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of fun that they got like a real life super couple to be in that show. Yeah, we'll see. Peanuts. So this is kind of a controversy. Yeah, Charlie Brown Christmas will be on Apple TV, but if you don't, or Apple TV Plus, if you don't have Apple TV Plus, you can watch it on PBS and PBS Kids on December 19th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So this, I guess ever since Apple got the rights to the Charlie Brown Christmas stuff, every year since then, people, there's always that article that gets written about what a travesty it is that you have to have Apple TV Plus to watch Charlie Brown Christmas. Although I don't think that's ever been true. I think every year Apple has allowed PBS to show it at least once, and looks like they're doing it again this year. But yeah, I mean, I guess get used to it.
Welcome to the new streaming reality.
Yeah.
And then coming up really soon, end of this week? Is going to be the Great British Baking Show Holidays, season 4. I'm sure you'll be watching.
I usually watch them, but I don't always watch them. Sometimes they have like celebrities on, right, to do that, or is it always? I get them confused. Sometimes it's just the holiday show is just like Paul making something, or Mary, back in when Mary was still on the show, it would be them. It would just sometimes be them.
Watch the American holiday shows, which was. They had what's her name from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and her now ex-husband were the initial host of it, and then I feel like it was Terry Crews who hosted like maybe season 3 of it.
Oh God,
so that's the American version. This is actually the first time that I didn't even know that they did a UK version of the holiday.
Oh yeah, I think they're all on Netflix. Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up really fast. I think they're on. I think they're all on Netflix, but I think they often have. Yeah, there's like 3 seasons of them on Netflix right now. So this will be the 4th season. So yeah, sometimes they've brought people back. They've brought former contestants back, and it looks like they've done that. They've done that every year. Okay, so the Great British Baking Show Holidays show is usually 1 or 2 episodes that they do as part of the series. The first season was 2 episodes, comprised only of former contestants. Season 2 was 2 episodes, comprised of former contestants. Season 3, which I'm not sure what year this was from, but season 3 did 1 episode with former contestants, and then 1 episode of I'm quoting here, the fun-loving cast of the Dairy Girls wing it as they do their holly jolly best to impress Paul and Prue with trifles, Bellini, and 3D decade cakes. And that was garbage. I was not watching that. I don't watch Bake Off to watch actors or actresses or celebrities screw around and not take things seriously, because that's all they do. They're just jacking around, and they just trying to be funny. I don't want to see that. The Bake Off that's not the appeal of Bake Off to me, to see people try to be funny. I just want to see them try and to be nice. Be nice and try. And those are kind of words to live by, I think.
Celebrities on those kind of cooking shows, the one time where I've actually found that I enjoy it is what is it? Nailed It on Netflix. Like some of the recent seasons have had and sometimes it'll just be like one celebrity, and it's usually like a C-level D-list celebrity. But it's kind of fun to see like a D-list celebrity competing against like normal average Americans and have them just suck just as bad as the normal Americans. I don't know. That's fun. So I think in a show format like Nailed It, that's where that's appropriate, not on, high prestigious art like the Great Baking Show.
Yeah, so my wife and son both Nailed It, and I don't. I will not watch it.
I will watch it. She's the host is a little over the top for me, and as long as I'm in the right mood, I can totally enjoy it and actually crave it at times. So
do you want to hear a little bit about the Great British Baking Show Holiday Season 4? They're doing it differently this year. Is this considered a spoiler for you? It's not really a spoiler. It's 2 episodes. They're doing 2 episodes like they usually do. And the first episode, again, is like a competition with former contestants that they're bringing back to do it. But then episode 2... Okay, so episode 1 is described as Paul Hollywood, Prue Leith, Matt Lucas, and Tom Allen are joined by past bakers to celebrate Christmas in the tent. Episode 2 is described this way, and this is different. Noel, Matt, Prue, and Paul See in the new year with past bakers Helena and Henry, Nancy, Rahul, and a cozy sing-song around the piano. A cozy sing-song around the piano. I've got to see how this goes. Hopefully that's not what's going to be the entire episode, surely, right? Like, they didn't turn my baking show into a piano singing show, right? Right?
No.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably go.
I just want to. Yeah, we should. This turned into a 2-hour live chat.
Yeah. Hour 34 here for the
hour 34.
Show,
but
yeah.
Let's see who has stayed on. Flying Scotsman, Spectro, and J Baby, our most loyal audience members. Thank
MVPs,
you.
yeah, MVPs. Okay, so that has been the Continue Watching live Discord chat for everybody who turned in live to interact and listen. We appreciate that. Thank you. And we will be doing this again next Monday. Please join us then. Until then, we'll talk to you later. Matt, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right, goodbye, everybody.